They have these giant banners just promoting Institute.
Uh-huh.
They have each banner has a person on it. And one of the people on it had like nose piercings and tattoo. Like I was like, oh, I have never seen this in church media before. And that's been a couple years ago. So I think maybe they're moving that direction a little more.
Okay.
Interesting.
Does this mean the church is woke?
As the cold winds of winter sweep in, there's nothing like the warmth of a comforting cup to help you slow down and unwind. This is the season. Let Postum be your cozy companion. Made from roasted grains, Postum is caffeine-free and rich with a smooth roasted flavor. It's the perfect drink for those quiet, chilly mornings. Whether you're curled up with a good book, sharing a laugh with loved ones, or simply watching the snow fall outside, a cup of Postum is the moment you have been waiting for.
Hello, welcome to This Week in Mormons, the Twin Sisters edition. With sisters, Ariane Smith
and Tiffany Hales.
We're back again.
I know. We were only here, 2 weeks ago?
Couple weeks ago.
I know. My guest that I wanted to have on for Twim Taffy couldn't make it today. And so you kindly agreed. And
we worked it out.
We worked it out. And she'll be back. She'll be here in 2 weeks.
Who is it?
It is Sarah Jorgensen. I've had her on a couple times.
Yeah.
She's a listener who lives down in St. George.
Yeah,
and we haven't checked in with her for a while. So yeah, I'm excited. I think she'll be all sorts of fun.
I will look forward to that.
So thank you for having flexibility in your schedule.
Of course. I have no new updates on what's going on in my life other than my calling. You know, I've been teaching primary forever. I now have 3 teachers. like there's you and 2 other people? Instead of me and a co-teacher, we now have a group of 3.
Oh, you're a trio.
Kind of a sweet deal. Yeah. It makes it like super easy when you're going out of town.
Exactly.
So our primary is just shrinking because not only do we have 3 teachers, we have a combined CTR 4, 5, and 6 class.
I knew you had 2 or 3 of them combined together.
The ratio is great. We got 5 kids, 3 teachers. That is a very good ratio, especially for small children.
That's nearly a 1-to-1.
I know. Nice. Especially for small children, because there's always somebody that's like, I need to go to the bathroom. I need a drink. So anyways, I'm very happy about my current setup.
Now, is your son still in your class?
Yes, he is. I've had him since Sunbeams.
Oh my gosh.
And he just like keeps moving up in classes, but they keep combining the classes. So I keep moving up with him. So.
He's going to think Mom's always my primary teacher.
I know.
If at some point in time you are not his primary teacher, you may have to send him to therapy. He may be like, no.
I know.
I don't go to primary unless my mommy is there.
You know what? It's so fun though. Because he's my youngest, I so very much enjoy it.
Yes.
Had this been my older kids, I'd have been like, nope, I cannot teach them. It's just different when it's your youngest.
It really
it's so
is.
different.
It's kind of crazy.
The vibes are different.
It is so true. I mean, you really do raise your youngest very different from how you raise your oldest.
Yeah, and you just know it's the last, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Exactly.
I love that I get to teach him every Sunday.
Exactly. No, that's so cool. So
what's new with you?
All right. So I did a Relief Society training on Wednesday. So they had this regional Relief Society training, and it was via Zoom. And so I think it was I don't know how you define our region, but in any event, there were like 700 people online, but maybe even more because we met as a presidency, and there were 4 of us in the room.
So there could have been others that were together.
There could have been others that were together. So all Relief Society presidencies were invited, and I think bishoprics and bishops. Let me see who else was invited besides Relief Society presidencies, because I've got it right here.
Elders Quorum presidencies, probably?
No. It was the stake presidency was invited, Relief Society presidencies, high council members with responsibilities to ward elders quorums, Relief Society presidencies, bishoprics, and or bishopric counselors. So the funny thing is
no elders quorum, huh?
Well, it was just a Relief Society specific training.
Oh, okay, got it.
So the funny thing is it's on a Wednesday night, and I'm like, well, good luck getting your bishoprics there. So I had no idea. So my husband is over priest. He's a priest quorum advisor, and so the young men were coming to our house on Wednesday, and I was like, Was the bishop there? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, I kind of suspected. I don't know how many bishoprics showed up.
Well, and that's interesting because I know they did one of these every night, because on Tuesday they did one
for primary
presidencies, and on Thursday they did for young women's.
Yes.
So if the bishop had to go to all of those,
that would be a lot.
Poor bishops.
That would be a lot. Anyway, and honestly, there wasn't much there for the bishop. So let me tell you how they did this. So, of course, we're all on Zoom, and they have two sisters that are part of the Relief Society Advisory Council that were there, Elaine Thornton and Charlene Miner. And then, of course, it's not a meeting unless you have presiding priesthood authority.
Right.
So our presiding priesthood authority was Stephen J. Larson.
So did they come here, or was this from Salt Lake?
It appeared to me that they were in Salt Lake.
Okay.
I would guess just based on the background. So the two sisters were side by side together on the camera.
Okay.
And then the priesthood guy was off somewhere else.
Okay.
Anyway, so the sisters, the advisory council sisters had probably about 4 or 5 topics that they wanted to talk about. They wanted to talk about ministering and service and a bunch of topics. And so they were fantastic. I cannot say enough good about them. I thought that they really understood real life concerns. Also, people could type in comments and people could say, oh, we do this in our ward. And they were interactive in terms of
reading those.
In terms of reading those.
That's hard to do.
Which is hard to do. And they had little scenarios that they were doing. And they got it. They understood what the concerns and the issues were that Relief Society presidencies dealt with. They were absolutely 100% fantastic. The comments, my Relief Society president kept taking her phone and taking screenshots of the comments because there were just so many and you couldn't get them all. And people had really good ideas.
Good ideas.
Good ideas.
Okay, that's kind of fun.
So after they would finish a topic, they would go, okay, Elder Larson, now it's your turn.
For every topic? Every topic. Like we just got done talking with ministering. Do you have something to say about ministering, Elder Larson?
Yes.
Oh.
And this is where it took a decidedly different
That's going to make a meeting drag out.
Well, not only does it make a meeting drag out, but he'd get on and it was like he was asleep during their conversation. He'd be blah, 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 blah. And then he'd be like looking down. He wasn't engaging with the camera. They were very much engaging with the camera. And I don't remember a dang thing he said because nothing he said seemed relevant or important. As I said, after the second time they cut to him, I said to my presidency, I said, he's an afterthought. Why do we have the afterthought here? Let the afterthought give a 5-minute summary at the end. I don't know why I need a summary from the afterthought who is saying nothing of real importance.
On every topic. Do you think
on every topic
he had like a thing written out on every topic that he was kind of reading, or?
I don't really know. I mean, it was just, again, his microphone, he wasn't very close to his computer, so it was hard to hear him. He was kind of mumbling. He wasn't looking at the camera. I mean, I just couldn't even focus because there was so much distraction going on. And that's why I was like, afterthought.
Okay, here's my other question. Not to be ageist, how old was he?
He was probably, I would say, mid to late 50s.
Okay, so he's in range to be up and up with Zoom.
Well, exactly. And he didn't strike me as being much older, or he struck me as being in the same age range as the two sisters that were advisory council members.
I know that was totally an ageist question, but I'm just wondering if this is like a 75-year-old trying to be engaging via the computer is
exactly. And I suppose I probably would not even be bringing this up if that were the case, because I probably would have cut him a pass or cut him some slack. But I was like, no, you weren't super well prepared for this meeting, dude. You weren't.
So were you brave enough to get on the comments and mention that?
No, I took note of it and I went, I'm going to talk about this in my podcast. Because let me tell you, every time I go to one of these, I consider it potential material.
I feel like they need some feedback. I'm sure they're doing this all across the country. Somebody should tell them.
Oh, I'm sure someone in Salt Lake will listen to this and go, those twin sisters really we're not a big fan.
Oh, I'm sure it'll get back to him. No, somebody needs to tell him. How can you pass this message up the chain?
Oh, trust me, it'll get up the chain. Okay, so another funny thing from the training as well. And again, like I said, this training was actually very, very, very good. So towards the end of the training, they put up this QR code, and the QR code was for it was a life help QR code that would then take you, I think, into the gospel library,
Okay.
where there was life help stuff. And so Christy, my Relief Society president, gets out her phone and she's snapping the QR code.
Okay.
And when she goes to, you know how you snap a QR code and you hit on it
Hit
and
the
it
link,
takes you
yeah.
to the website. The message was, that QR code does not work. It's been deactivated.
Oh, fail. Major fail.
For the life help QR code.
What is life help? Is this a category on?
I have no idea.
This word life help, this is new vocabulary for me.
It was new vocabulary for me.
I'm wondering if this is like a new category on the church website that
Maybe
I just have not
it's a new category
stumbled across
but
yet.
Either and it appeared that from the chat that people were getting on it. So I'm thinking maybe there were too many people trying to get on at once. And that's why we got the message that we got. But we thought it was quite hilarious that the life help QR code, the message comes back, does not work, deactivated. That would be a little distressing if you were looking for some life help.
Okay.
Anyway, and one final thought.
Okay.
Because here's one of the things that they talked about. They talked about ministering interviews.
Oh,
I know. The
fraught ministering interviews that nobody likes.
Nobody likes.
What did they say?
And I had a really good discussion with Georgia when I recorded with Georgia. We talked about ministering interviews. I listened to that
and I was like, yes, 100% yes.
I don't know anybody who doesn't
Nobody likes
ministering interviews, and they're like guilt. And these two sisters on the Relief Society Advisory Board acknowledged that. And they're like, look, we, in fact, they even said, we really don't like the term ministering interviews. They said, we really like the term ministering counsel, because we feel like what we are doing in these is counseling with each other and talking with each other. And they said they had sent that change up the chain of command, and they were waiting to hear back if ministering interview was going to be replaced with ministering counseling.
No.
You're not liking the term.
You can't put lipstick on a pig. It's the same thing. I don't care what you call it. It's the same thing. And it's still going to be fraught.
Well,
because it's going to be like, how's your person? And then you feel like you have to like spout off information about your person. Like either you feel guilty for not doing it, or you have checked in with your person and they're prying for information and you're like, I'm not going to share all her like I've had that happen before. Like,
well, one of the things that they did is they did some role playing with this, and I really liked the role playing that they did. So, and in this role playing, they never once asked about the person that they ministered to.
They just asked about the person that was in there.
They asked about the person that was in there.
I appreciate that.
The person that was in there was like, I only have 2 minutes. I have to make this really quick. And so they were like, hey, what's going on in your life? What are you doing? Da, 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 da. Okay, I'm not going to take up too much of your time because I know you're really busy. Okay, fantastic checking in with you. Hey, we just have a quick question for you. Those sisters that you minister to, do you think you could make sure to include them in your prayers? And the lady was like, oh yeah, I could totally do that. I appreciated that.
That's better.
No, I was like, yeah, I wouldn't walk out of that feeling guilty. So I liked the fact that they kind of gave you permission to not be like, how many times have you seen? What's going on? Da, da, da. I want you to return and report, which is what we all hate about the ministering interviews.
Yeah, it is. Sometimes it can feel so invasive.
Yes.
And I know they don't mean it. I know it comes from a place of love.
Yes.
But like I've visited less active sisters before, or someone who was coming to church less and been flat out asked like, well, what's going on with them? Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not going to share that. Yeah. That's their story to share, and it's personal.
Well, exactly. And I think you and I are probably bold enough that if we were ministering someone that we didn't feel comfortable sharing, I would say, look, I'm seeing her. I know what's going on in her life. I'm helping her, but I do not feel comfortable. She has expressed things to me, and I don't want to violate that privacy. And so I don't feel comfortable sharing those things right now.
Yeah. So I like the idea of like, let's not focus on that at all.
Yeah.
So that would be great if they could pass that down the chain. Like, don't even ask about the sisters. I just don't know if that change will be implemented very quickly.
And I don't think I don't see that as a change. What I see is that the type of ministering interview spans the globe.
Right.
So, maybe you're starting out with this, and maybe you've got a sister who is more involved and more active in reaching out to those she ministers to, and maybe she has a lot more to share about those that she ministers to. But I think the overall goal of it is to not make people feel guilty when they show up to a ministering interview.
Yeah, that's a huge thing.
So, and just the fact that they are cognizant and aware that that's how people feel, and they're trying to encourage behaviors and activities that will address that concern.
Right. That is good to hear.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's good to hear. So that they're aware.
They are aware.
The higher ups are aware.
Anyway, so needless to say, I did feel overall that the training was very worth my time.
Okay. Very nice.
All right. Okay. One other quick thing I have to share with you.
Oh.
So I meant to share this last time we recorded, and I forgot.
Okay.
Because it was on the end of the list, and we were running short on time.
Okay.
And so I was like, totally forgot that I did not share that. So if you ever, so the church does casting for a variety of different things, whether it's photography, still photography that they need, for all sorts of different things, or videos or things like that. And so there's a whole website that you can go and sign up and, submit your name and your details and all of that.
Right.
So
that a star in a temple video.
You could be.
They probably don't put that.
I'm kind of doubting that the temple videos get advertised.
They probably don't use central casting for that.
They probably selectively pick their people for that. I would guess. But in any event, so I saw one a couple weeks ago, and it came out on a Sunday, and you had to have your application in by Tuesday, and the photo shoot was Saturday.
Oh, that was a quick turnaround.
It was a quick turnaround. It was hilarious. They were looking for people with tattoos. They were also looking for men that had beards and long hair. Just your very non-traditional looking members of the church.
Okay.
But you had to be an active member of the church, and you had to have a temple recommend and be in good standing.
Okay.
And the reason that they were doing this is they were putting together, I think it was photography. I don't think it was a video that was involved. I think it was just photography. They were wanting to take pictures of a sacrament meeting that had, I'm going to use a very highly emotionally charged word, diversity in it. Because these were pictures that were going to be shown to investigators, so that investigators wouldn't look at people attending our sacrament meeting and look like we are all carved out of cream cheese.
Okay, this is so interesting.
I thought it was so fascinating.
I feel like for years the church has tried to show diversity as far as race and gender quite a bit in their promotional materials.
But I would dare say, even in the temple, you will find diversity in race and gender in what you see at the temple.
But I do believe this tattoo and piercing and beard situation
long hair
is a new form of diversity they are dabbling into. Because I told you, didn't I tell you a couple years ago about the Institute building in Tucson?
Yes.
My in-laws live in Tucson, and we always go to University of Arizona, go to a game or hang out on campus while we're there. And we always park at the Institute building.
Yeah.
And my sister-in-law was like, you got to check out the banners that they have outside the Institute building. They have these giant banners just promoting Institute. They have each banner has a person on it. And one of the people on it had nose piercings and tattoo. I was like, oh, I have never seen this in church media before. And that's been a couple years ago. So I think maybe they're moving that direction a little more.
Okay.
Interesting.
Does this mean the church is woke? Are they going to get protests?
Well, I'm sure if you ask the right person, they will definitely say that is. Depending on who you ask.
It's very true. I'm sorry, I just had to throw that down because I can't help myself these days. I'm trying to exercise a lot of restraint.
It's very hard these days.
Very hard.
Okay.
Anyway, and then I had one that popped up on my email this week that they're wanting people to model like not temple clothing, but like white dresses and things like that. And they were looking for people between size 6 and size 22.
Oh,
so they were also being
we're getting diverse with the sizes.
We are
too.
being
I
body inclusive as well.
I love it. That's great.
I love it too. So
I'm happy with all of this.
Agreed. Agreed.
Okay.
All right. Well, before we move on to some stories, we do need to thank our sponsor, Postum. I have been so remiss lately in coming up with new Postum beverages. Maybe I will make that a goal for April.
I know.
Because I have not made you try a new Postum beverage in several months.
I know. We need to get back on the Postum
experimental
train.
And we are headed into summer season, so I will be looking for iced Postum beverages.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, you've got the first story.
I do have the first story. So we have, speaking of Relief Society, we have President Camille Johnson, who is the president of the General Relief Society. And she recently went to Los Angeles. In fact, she was at the Church Visitors Center at the Los Angeles Temple. And she joined a group of 120 women that were gathered there. And this is an annual thing that she's done once a year. And these women were diplomats for the 9th annual International Women in Diplomacy Day.
All right. And this was kind of in honor of International Women's Day,
in
conjunction with
International Women's Day. And March is Women's History Month. Again, are we woke?
For now, it's Women's History Month. That might go away.
Well, and I think I saw some scuttlebutt that International Women's Day had been removed, like from Google calendars and things like that. So who knows? Maybe we're getting erased. In any event, the church is celebrating this strongly. So take that for what it's worth, because they acknowledge this is part of International Women's Day.
They have not erased it.
So anyway, so she went there and she met with these women and she spoke and she said, and I adore President Johnson.
I really like her.
Like she is fantastic. There has been nothing that she's done that I haven't been like, you go girl, you go girl. She's been fantastic. She said, imagine what would happen if we as women in leadership roles could unleash the full power of women to transform their personal inspiration into organized action. I just love that. She is just so pro-women. And she says, each of our communities depend on ordinary women for human flourishing as they perform their unique roles as leaders, teachers, nurturers, healers, mothers, daughters, sisters, and peacemakers, President Johnson said. And the meeting this year, the focus on the meeting this year was on women's mental health and focused on well-being for women worldwide, which again, so needed. And just really thought that this was a great thing. And let me flip the page here, get a couple of quotes. She says, I strive to be a disciple of Jesus Christ. Christ's most important requirement for me as his disciple is to recognize immediate individual needs around me and respond with patience and love. And I have really seen that in her presidency and just a lot of the initiatives that she's had. And most of these initiatives that I've seen have been outside of the United States. They have been worldwide initiatives to educate women, to bring food to mothers and children, to really build up women in these communities that are less privileged than what we have here in America, because she understands that if we build up the women in those communities will flourish. I really liked her final quote. She said, we cannot reach every person in the world, no matter how well funded our programs, well-penned policies, or well-developed diplomacy. But through our global sisterhood, we can reach every single soul. So
I liked that too.
Especially
at a time where funding is contentious. It's a good reminder that, so much is out of our control.
Exactly.
We have zero control, but we can affect the people around us. And that's a place to start.
It is absolutely a place to start, whether you are affecting the people around you in your family, at work, or in the community. You start there, and I love it. I think it has the ripple effect. So Anyway, good for Sister
All
Johnson.
right. Very good. Okay. We have another Women's History Month, kind of in conjunction thing with the church. The church just released, in honor of Women's History. Well, they were going to do it, but they did it this month specifically to go along with Women's History Month. A new book. It is called Carry On, the Latter-day Saint Young Women Organization, 1870 to 2024. And it is a new book all about the history of the Young Women's Program.
Okay, I'm kind of excited to get my hands on this.
I am too. I wonder, I mean, I know they said it's for sale, but will they put it's in Deseret Book and on Amazon. I wish they would put it out like Saints.
I know.
And maybe they will.
Maybe they will eventually. Because
it sounds very Saints-like. Like it's a mixture of history
and stories,
personal stories throughout the years. I'm like, this sounds just like the format of Saints.
Exactly. It did to me
but
too.
The history of young women. So I really want to get my hands on it. I really wish the church would put it in the app.
Because with the price on it, it's $35.
Yes, $35.
It's not an inexpensive book.
Cheap book. And like, honestly, if I don't get the audiobook, I probably won't read it.
That's very true.
I mean, that's how I got through Saints, was listening.
And I'm with you there.
Anyways, I just thought that was super interesting. I would love to read more about the history of young women. All I know is it was started by Brigham Young for his daughters to rein in their clothing choices, which is actually hysterical given the years of clothing baggage surrounding the Young Women's Organization with their modesty standards. But
okay, I did not even know that that's how it started. Was for Brigham Young to rein in his daughter's clothing choices.
It started with Brigham Young and his daughters, and he wanted them to make better grooming. He wanted them to be less fancy. He wanted them to be well groomed, but reasonable.
Okay, so you know what this tells me? This tells me the battle between teenage girls and their parents over clothing is one that has gone on for years.
It is.
And years.
It is.
Centuries, maybe.
Long-standing tradition. Anyway, but I would love to see the complete history of how we got from there to where we are now, which we have come a long ways.
Admittedly, we have.
From an organization solely concerned about clothing. Now our concern about clothing is getting less and less and less.
Exactly. And the concern for the young women is helping them to develop a relationship with Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
That seems to be the number one priority for young women today, is how can we help these girls develop a relationship with Jesus Christ.
It's so interesting just how that has tweaked over the years, even from when we were in Young Women's to how it is now. I love that it evolves. I love that it changes with whatever the current needs of girls are. I think that's super important. And it doesn't look like it looked when I was in Young Women's, even though I had a great time in Young Women's. I loved what I did in Young Women's, but now it's geared more towards what these girls need now, and
which is awesome.
Great. Yeah.
Okay, you have the next one.
Okay. Oh, the next one is water usage by the church, water conservation. We've had several articles about this.
Yes, we have. Because our woke church.
I know. I'm noticing a theme this month. Everything the church is doing this month is very
wants to conserve water because they believe that they have a responsibility to be good stewards of the earth.
Yes.
And I wholeheartedly support this.
I know. I think it's great. So we've talked about this before. This is just a new kind of update on what's going on, because this project is due to be completed in 2025, a church conservation program. And it sounds like most of this has been focused on the Western United States, at least for now. I'm imagining that's where the church uses
a lot of water.
I imagine they're not excessively using water at chapels in Africa.
Probably not, because I'm doubting chapels in Africa think that they need to have vast acres of grass like we in the Western United States do.
So we 100% need to do our share here. And they have been doing some great things. So some of the things that they've done that are going to be in existence as of now for this summer in the Western United States are they've installed a bunch of smart irrigation controllers that first of all, they can control remotely from like Salt Lake or whatever, but these irrigation controllers can figure out the weather. Like, oh, a rainstorm's coming. We're going to turn off the sprinklers.
Exactly.
I'm like, that's so smart. Can I get that in my yard? I mean, I could turn off the sprinklers in my yard if the rainstorm was coming, but I think that's very smart.
Well, especially because they don't have custodians like they used to who were down at the building every day.
Yeah.
And so, that to have the technology, and they use it through cellular access,
right.
To have that technology to be able to turn off the sprinklers. They are likely not only saving water, they're probably saving energy too, because I know in the summertime when I run my sprinklers, my energy bill goes up just from running my sprinklers.
That's true.
In addition to my water bill.
That is true. So, and they have been working for several years on changing landscaping at certain chapels to be more like water friendly, drought friendly plants, less flowers and grass. So, and they did say this, I thought was interesting, on Temple Square. They have made it a very concerted effort on Temple Square. They are planting 30% more trees during this renovation, 35% less of the landscaping, like turf grass.
Yes.
And then 30% less in the number of like annual flowers and plants that they put in the landscape that you have to replant every year. So, and they're going to put in more drought tolerant plants. So I think that's super interesting. Like 30% is not insignificant.
No,
and Temple Square is known for its beautiful landscaping and flowers. So I will be really curious to see if like we notice. I don't think we notice. I mean, I don't go to Temple Square that much.
Temple Square is going to be beautiful. Regardless,
they'll make it look beautiful.
They will make it look fantastic, and they will be using less water. And I think that that's great.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a good example for us of how the church feels about the stewardship of our natural resources, that, we should feel the same way about the stewardship of our natural resources.
Yeah, I think so too. So I'll be curious. I will definitely, now that I've read all these articles, be paying more attention to the landscaping next time I go to Temple Square whenever it reopens. So,
well, we know we have
true. In 2027.
We've got was it 27 or 26?
27.
27.
2 years.
Yes, 2 years. Yes, we have a preliminary time frame for temple dedication and open house.
All right.
Okay, so my next story is the Bednars. So Elder and Sister Bednar, before he was called as a general authority, he was the president of BYU Idaho, although I believe at the time it was still Rick's. I don't know if it had changed to BYU Idaho yet or not.
I can't remember.
But in any event, he was the president. And it was during that time period that they were there that they had their 25th wedding anniversary. Well, they got invited back recently on their 50th wedding anniversary to have a devotional for the kids.
Wow.
So
he's been an apostle that means he's been an apostle for almost 25 years.
He's been an apostle for a while. And I don't know how long ago it's, right here it says BYU Idaho transitioned from a 2-year college to a 4-year university more than 20 years ago. And so they were serving as the president and first lady of the school when they celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary. Okay. So I don't know if he's necessarily been an apostle for 25 years, but probably at least 20 years. He's been around for a while.
Yeah. Wow.
Because he came in around the same time I think Uchtdorf did.
Time goes fast.
Yeah, it really does. Anyway. So they return to the scene of the crime, known as BYU Idaho,
to celebrate
their 50th.
Wow! Some people go on cruises. Some people go on European vacations. They went to BYU Idaho
to do a devotional because, yes, the Bednars are better than us, and I don't necessarily feel bad about that. Anyway, so. But I really love how they did this devotional. Now, usually when you have a devotional, somebody gets up at a podium, they speak, then somebody else gets up at a podium and they speak. They did not do this. They made it like a living room setting. So they are in the BYU version of the Marriott Center, which is, I don't know what they call that, but it seats like 12,000 people. And so they've got 12,000 people in there. They're seated on a stage in some comfy chairs just next to each other, like they're sitting in their living room, and they've got microphones and they're just kind of casually doling out marriage advice to the kids at BYU Idaho. So he made a couple of very astute marriage observations, which I would assume after 50 years of being married, you'd learn a thing or two. Anyway, so one of the first things he said that I really liked is he said, Elder Bednar repeatedly emphasized that happiness in marriage and family life is not found, it's created. So he was saying to all you little BYU students out there who are just thinking, oh, I just have to find the right person to make me happy. And once I find the right person to make me happy, it'll be happily ever after. And he said, no, you don't find the marriage you want to have, you create it. I loved that.
It's good advice.
And then he said, then he talked about the ceiling in the house of the Lord. He said, it is an opportunity, not a guarantee, is what he said about that. And then he also talked about simple joys. He noted that creating a happy marriage is demanding work. So he's not like sugarcoating how hard marriage is. He's like, it's demanding work. Sometimes it's frustrating. It's also the most deliriously joyful and happy thing you can experience in mortality. And he said, find joy in simple activities and moments. And so they brought out something to illustrate this, and I loved what they brought out. They brought out a battered, well-used game of Scrabble that they received as a wedding present. And so Sister Bednar goes on to explain that instead of playing Scrabble for points and competing against each other, the two of them would work together to try and use up all the letter tiles. And at times when they were frustrated or fussy, I love that term, with each other.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to start using that with my husband. To say, why are you fussy? Can you imagine? I don't think that would go over well.
That's fantastic. Anyway, so she says when they're fussy with each other, one of them will invite the other to play Scrabble, and soon the two are cooperating and working together in harmony once more. I really liked that because I mean, I don't play Scrabble, but that has happened to me on several occasions when I get fussy with my husband and find, he's annoying me for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. If we sit down and work on a project together and do something together where we actually have to cooperate with each other and work with each other.
As long as it's not putting together furniture.
Very true. As long as it's not putting together.
Personal experience. That's not going to help the situation.
Okay. Very fair.
Has to be the right project.
Has to be the right project. I would definitely agree with you there. But having to work on something together and work cooperatively on something together will usually dissipate whatever negative emotions I may be experiencing at the time. So on that aspect, I definitely agree. And then he says, marriage is not big vacations. It's not big grandiose outings. It's little, simple, often silly things that you do and you always remember. And I think that's so true. I mean, I think we kind of get this fantasy of, getting married and happily ever after. And then you get into the reality of what like everyday life is with family and kids and careers and church callings. And sometimes it's just really, really hard. And you're like, this is no fun. And so I thought his advice was spot on. So
all right.
Good for you, Elder Bednar.
Very nice. Okay, next story. This is a Deseret News write-up on BYU's rise and mostly about Kevin Young, their new coach. Okay. So this is a very long article. If you are a BYU basketball fan, you need to go read this article because it was really good. Lots of great information. So we know they got this new coach this year, Kevin Young. He came from the NBA. Everybody was very excited. This was much hyped.
So hyped.
And he came in just raring to go and saying, yeah, I'm going to he came in pretty confidently.
He really did. He said a lot of things that people raised their eyebrows and went, really? Good luck with that. Really? Good luck with that.
And they had a rough start to their season.
They did.
They lost several games early on pretty badly.
They did not have good sea legs.
And people were like, uh-oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
BYU and their basketball.
Yeah.
So, but
they got it together.
They have gotten it together. They've won, I believe, 9 straight games in a row right now. They're in, currently this weekend is the Big 12 tournament, and they are seeded number 4 in the Big 12.
Which is fantastic.
They won a big game yesterday against, I think it was Iowa State. And today, by the time you hear this recording, it will probably be over. But today they're playing in the semifinals against Houston, which is the number 1 seed. So they are doing very well, hoping to make it to the tournament.
I do not see how they will not end up at
They'll
the
make it to the tournament. It will be, how will they do in the tournament?
That is exactly right. I don't think it's a question of making it. I think it's a question of how they'll do.
So, but this was like just a really interesting write-up on Kevin Young and all of the things that he has implemented in the BYU program this year.
Which he has made radical changes to how BYU does basketball.
Yes, he's changed recruiting. He's changed the way they play. He's really implemented a lot of NBA ideas into BYU's program, and he's brought a lot of people from the NBA with him. That's one thing I was surprised about reading the article. He kept listing off, they listed off so many staff members in different roles in the program that he pulled from the NBA. I thought that was super interesting. The way he's playing these players is they're going for threes or like layups. He doesn't want them shooting in the middle because it's risky. And there's all kinds of things that he's implementing. So go read it. It's a super interesting article.
It is a deep dive. It's a long article.
It's a long article. But it was really, really interesting and fun to read about his different staff members and what they're doing. And the different things they've implemented. He has these like key phrases that everybody knows. They call them like, I don't know what they call them, youngisms. They call them youngisms. One is, we're not a one-trick pony. One thing he's done is he's really stacked the level of talent. He doesn't let, the starters play the whole game. He really switches them up. So every player's getting about like a half hour of playtime per game so that he keeps them fresh. I'm like, well, that's interesting. And he has enough talent that he can do that. So he is just having great success so far, and we hope it continues.
Well, on that same note, BYU's one of their biggest rivals, the University of Utah, not to be outdone by BYU, they were like, well, if an NBA coach is good for you, then an NBA coach is good for us.
I thought this was so interesting. Is this going to be the new way? Colleges are pulling
I am wondering if this is going to be the new way. So, University of Utah just hired their own NBA coach. And the reason this is on This Week in Mormons is he is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. His name is Alex Jensen. Now, I have followed Alex's wife, Natalie.
Oh, that's Natalie. I remember you telling me about her.
Yes. So I have followed her.
They're from Texas, right?
Well, they're in Texas right now. So I followed her before she even married Alex. So she was an actress on Broadway, and he was coaching the Jazz at the time that they met. But she was back to Utah all the time because her siblings, her sisters, and her parents lived there. And so they met and they got married, and she moved into his house. He had a house in Bountiful, and he was coaching for the Jazz. They had 3 kids. And then 2 years ago, he got cut by the Jazz, and the Dallas Mavericks picked him up. So they've lived in Dallas.
And he was an assistant coach.
He was an assistant coach for the Jazz, and he's an assistant coach for Dallas. And so was Kevin Young. Kevin Young was an assistant coach as well, and bounced around a couple of different teams. And so they've lived in Dallas for the last 2 years, and he's been coaching the Mavericks. They never sold their house in Bountiful, which told me Dallas was a layover, not a final destination.
Interesting.
And so when this coaching opportunity came up, the Utes snapped him up. Now, here's what's really interesting. He is a former player for the Utes. That's where he played college basketball, was the Utes, and he played under Rick Majerus. And then after college, he went and did some overseas leagues, and he came back and he coached as an assistant coach at the college level with Rick Majerus in St. Louis, and then he got into the NBA. So I think that we will see him bringing some of the similar NBA things.
Interesting. Well, and I'm sure they know each other very well.
Absolutely.
Right?
There's no way that Alex Jensen and Kevin Young don't know each other. I mean, it's a very small circle for assistant coaches in the NBA. And then you factor in the member of the church factor. So I'm sure that they know each other. I'm also pretty sure, just based on their personalities, they probably have a lot of respect for each other.
I'm sure.
Anyway, so the Jensens are coming back to the Beehive State, which is fantastic. Also, you know who Natalie Hill Jensen is really good friends with?
Who?
Bronwyn Newport.
Oh my gosh.
From Real Housewives of Salt Lake City.
What if they try to recruit her?
Well, Natalie
Someone tell her to say no.
Natalie has hinted in the past that they've tried to recruit her, and she is smart enough to say no.
Tell her to keep saying no.
Well, and in fact, when Bronwyn went on, Natalie had something on her Instagram that was so funny. When you tell your best friend not to do something, but you can't stop, you can't turn away from looking because you're so fascinated about what you know she's going to do.
Well, this is worlds colliding.
It is worlds colliding.
We can talk about sports.
We can talk about sports and pop culture and Real Housewives all in one fell swoop.
Okay, next story. We're sticking with the sports theme here. Jimmer Fredette, notable former BYU player, one of the most famous BYU basketball players, I would say.
Yes.
Up there, pretty up there. He just got a new gig. He is going to be announcing it. He's going to be part of a 3-person team doing announcing for Yahoo Sports for the NCAA tournament this year. So congratulations to him.
Yep.
He's done a little bit of broadcast work for BYU basketball games, but this is kind of his big foray. So
exactly.
Good luck to him.
All right. We got one last sports story. My man, Zach Wilson.
Oh, Zach Wilson.
You know, I have always been a Zach Wilson.
Do you still follow his mom?
I do still follow his mom. I have been a Zach Wilson fan since he went to the Jets. I think he got kind of a raw deal by the Jets.
Oh, that was rough.
They traded him to the Broncos. And so he's been at Denver for, I think, only a year has he been in Denver. But he was competing for the quarterback position in Denver. They gave it to one guy. He ended up third-string quarterback and didn't play at all in Denver. So now he is getting traded to Miami. So he's going to the Dolphins.
Okay.
But things are looking up for him because the Dolphins are looking for a good, solid backup quarterback.
Okay.
So there is a very good possibility he will fill that role. He will get some playing time because I really think, given the right environment and given the right support network, that Zach has the potential to be a really good NFL quarterback. He didn't get that with the Jets. He didn't get that with the Broncos. I'm hoping he gets it in Miami.
I hope so. Good luck to Zach.
Good luck to Zach.
Okay.
Where
are we? What's next?
Oh,
Cougar Tales. We have a Cougar Tail story.
Okay.
Deseret News recently updated their Cougar Tail rankings. I didn't know that there were more than one flavor of Cougar Tails. I actually have never had a Cougar Tail because that was invented after my time at BYU.
And after my time at BYU,
unfortunately, I think I would love a Cougar Tail.
Well, it's a 15-inch maple bar. What's not to love?
Apparently, there are multiple flavors of it.
Which I had no idea.
And Deseret News has already ranked them, but they updated the ranking because the Cougar Tail recently came out with a new flavor for basketball season this year.
Yes.
That is royal blueberry, and it is a bright blue frosting, blueberry flavored frosting.
Yes. And the review that I heard on it was, it's very, very sweet.
Yes. They said it's very sweet. It is like not in the top.
No.
It's like out of these flavors, I think it's the last.
Yeah.
Second to last.
The dark chocolate was the last.
Dark chocolate is last. Then royal blueberry. Then milk chocolate is number 4. Number 3 is vanilla. Number 2 is maple, and number 1 is maple bacon. I had no idea they had this many flavors of a Cougar Tail.
I know. Well, and they don't have all those flavors available every time.
They're like seasonal.
They rotate them in and out depending on who they're playing. So again, they're understanding, supply and demand. That if you like the bacon Cougar Tail, you better get to this game because it's only going to be available at this game and that game.
There you go, Cougar Tail fans. The review of the blueberry.
Well, and the other thing, too, is I didn't realize, I thought the Cougar Tail was only a football thing.
Me too.
That they bring them out for basketball,
I guess
too.
They do, which is smart.
It is very smart. So, okay, next story, 2 stories, because we're running a little short on time. I am just going to kind of hit the highlights of these. These are for our listeners out there who are organ nerds. And we have at least 1 or 2 listeners who are organ nerds. And I found 2 really good organ nerd stories this week. First of all, there is a story, and I'll just hit the highlights. Believe it or not, that was done out of the University of Pennsylvania. I don't know why they're writing this story.
That's random.
They wrote a story about the history and tracing the musical legacy of music and media at the LDS Church, and they were talking about the organ that is in the tabernacle and how the really old original organ in the tabernacle, how that got there, how that became such a huge visitors destination to go there and see that organ. And they have daily organ concerts there, and visitors, would come, stop on their way for 150 years now and listen to the daily organ concert.
Okay. Quickly, I have to say something about organs. My husband, who does play the organ, Like he grew up in a very musical family. They're all musical, plays the organ, music in the spoken word broadcast every Sunday. You know how they every single week have an organ solo in the middle? He hates it. Like he cannot stand it. Every week he's like, the organ solo.
You know what? So my ex-husband, as you know, was like super into organs, which is probably why I have a little bit of affinity for it because I heard about it nonstop. He said that when polled, that was the universal complaint about music in the spoken word is everybody hated the organ solo.
This is universally disliked. I mean, I can't say I don't agree with him. If I had a choice between that and hearing the choir, I definitely want to hear the choir.
Exactly. Sorry, our organ friend nerds.
Sorry. Moving along. Next organ story.
8 tabernacle organists to perform March 11th. So yes, this date has already passed at the new pipe organ at BYU's performance. So BYU has a brand new music building concert hall that they have a fancy new organ in there. It's a 4-manual, 81 rank, 2 consoles, one in the center of pipework facade and movable stage console.
This means nothing to me.
This means nothing. Again, organ nerds, you'll understand. Anyway, so to inaugurate the new organ, they have asked Richard Elliott, Andrew Unsworth, Brian Matthias, Linda Margetts, and Joseph Peoples to come perform. Now, they are current tabernacle organists.
Okay.
There are emeritus tabernacle
That's
organists.
Actually a title?
That's actually a title.
Wow.
And so that is John Longhurst, Clay Christensen, and Bonnie Goodliff.
Okay.
So they all got invited as well. So all 8 of them got invited to christen the brand new fancy organ.
Oh, man. I should have taken my husband to that concert. He's going to be so sad he missed out.
He's going to be so sad. Okay, moving on.
All right. What's next?
Oh, we have Mormons in the media.
We've got a couple new, newish reality show updates. Okay. Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. The 2nd season is coming out May 15th. Prepare yourselves. This is going to be rough because they've added a new cast member and her name is Miranda Hope. And she is actually one of the people who was actually involved in the swinging scandal. I know the first season they kind of played up the swinging scandal. It wasn't really that much of a plot in the first season because nobody on the show was involved with it except for one girl, the Frankie, what's her first name?
Taylor Frankie Paul.
She was the only cast member that was actually involved. Well, this season they're adding another cast member that was in fact indeed involved with Taylor and her husband and other husbands and wives. So she is coming into play as a new cast member. Her name is Miranda Hope. I'm assuming there will be feelings and drama between her and Taylor. And I'm assuming this swinging storyline is going to get a little bit more play this season.
Probably going to get a little bit more play.
Which is unfortunate.
Because last season it got a lot of play in the first episode. Right. And then there was a big time jump between the first episode and episodes 2 through 6.
That was 6. Kind of like how they hooked you in. It almost felt like a scheme. Like we're going to hook you in with this.
And so then we come back 18 months later and that thing is all blown over. And because I couldn't really tolerate the first episode, but I watched the second and I was like, oh, I like it much better now than the first episode.
So buckle up. That's just going to be a delight, I'm sure.
Yes. Yes, I'm sure it will.
Okay. Second, just quick shout out. There are 2 members of the church that are currently on the current season of Amazing Race, Scott and Lori Thompson, husband and wife. They met at the MTC, classic LDS
love story.
They have 8 sons. They're on the Amazing Race currently.
Okay.
If you're interested, go check them out.
Now, did you watch this week's Bachelor? I know it was the ladies tell all.
Yes.
So do you have any updates
I have
on that?
No updates because I was really hoping it would be the fantasy suite week before we recorded so we could discuss because I know that our girl, Latia that we love, LDS grew up in Utah. She's a little bit nervous about the fantasy suite situation.
Said, I'm not going there.
So I have no updates because that won't be till next week. But all I do have to say, and I know Matt and Melissa hit on it last week, but I did watch the episode where they went to meet her family. I cannot say enough about how great her family was on TV.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I have not seen members of the church behave so wonderfully on TV for a very long time.
Oh, good.
I was like, can these people be the banner of
how you behave?
What we really want to see on TV. They were so loving and kind and accepting and genuine. I was just like, yes, love it.
Well, I am glad to hear that. So, all right. So my last Mormons in the media story, Lori Vallow, she speaks. She sat down with a one-on-one interview with Keith Morrison on Dateline. It aired last Friday.
I did not watch it yet.
I have watched bits and pieces of it. I sat down to try and watch it last weekend, and I just was so busy that I probably only got, about 10 minutes into it before I had to stop. But she's in typical Lori Vallow format.
Just kooky.
She's kooky. She's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. She does not live in the same reality that we live in.
Oh,
she's
man.
in another dimension. Not that we
Yikes.
should be surprised. We lived through the trial.
So just kind of more of the same.
So yes, if you do want to see it, it is available on Peacock.
Okay.
All right. Mormons behaving badly.
Ooh, this one's a doozy.
This one,
like real bad.
This one is a real doozy. Now, I have to preface this with, I do not have confirmation that these gentlemen are actually members of the church. What I do have is I do have very Mormon names in a very Mormon community. So if I am a betting person, I'm going to bet that they are members of the church.
The odds are very high.
The odds are very, very high. So Box Elder County, also known as Brigham City,
which I would say extremely high LDS population.
Exactly.
Probably close to Provo-ish.
So the first one was the Tremont Fire Chief. His name is Ned Brady Hansen. He was arrested in January on some kiddie porn stuff. He goes to court. They go to set his bail. Of course, the prosecutors are saying, oh, don't let him out. Don't let him out. Set a really high bail. He is appearing in front of Judge Kevin Christensen. Kevin Christensen denies law enforcement's request to hold Hansen without bail and allows Mr. Hansen to be released. This is in January. Now, come March, guess who gets arrested for kiddie porn? That would be Judge Kevin Christensen gets arrested.
Gross.
Actually, I shouldn't say kiddie porn. Hansen was charged with aggravated sexual exploitation of a minor. And I can't remember what Christensen's charges are. Oh, Christensen had multiple sex crime charges, including 2 accounts of attempted exploitation of a minor, 2 accounts of enticing a minor, and 2 accounts of dealing materials harmful to a minor. So, how do these 2 gentlemen know each other? They were both on an app for people who like to engage in that horrible proclivity. And so when they arrested Mr. Hansen, they took his phone and, of course, did a search on his phone, found these conversations that he had had with Judge Christensen, and then they started looking into Judge Christensen. So anyway, they are both now cooling their heels in the jail, awaiting resolution of their charges. There's also an indication that they might have met up together.
Right.
And I'm not going to go into any more detail on that.
That one was a doozy.
It really was a doozy.
Do not like those.
Anyway, if you want to be completely grossed out, go read the story.
Or don't.
All right. Okay, let's do favorite things. Let's end on a high note because that was a really
tough place to end.
Yes, it was.
Okay, my favorite thing this month is a TV show, and coincidentally, it has some members of the church on it currently. Another reality show.
Okay.
So this is a show my friend told me about. She's like, oh my gosh, you have to watch this show. It's I think it's pretty newish. It's on Fox. It's called Extracted. It's like a cross between like Survivor.
I've seen the ads for this.
Yes.
Like the family is in one part and the person is in another part doing survival stuff, and the family can like pull them out. They can push a button and pull them out.
You need to watch this show with your husband because he would love this show.
Okay.
So it's kind of a cross between Survivor and that show Alone. Remember the show Alone where they drop you in the wilderness and you can tap out?
I agree with you. I think Darren would like this.
So I think he would really like it. So yeah, that's exactly what it is. There's one family member out in the wilderness. They get to pick 2 family members to be at headquarters. And then there's a bit of a game going on with negotiation to like get your family members supplies to help them and stuff like this. But there are 3 Boise locals on the show.
They're Boise locals?
They are.
Get out of town.
They're from Meridian, and they are LDS.
Oh, now I'm going to have to go find this show. I
only know this. It doesn't come up on the show at all.
Yes.
This is not the kind of show where they're talking about their faith.
They're not talking about religion.
I only know this because my friend who told me to watch the show, her husband knows a couple of them. So, anyways, so the 3 brothers, if you go watch the show, because you won't know, the 3 that are brothers, those are the LDS guys from Idaho.
Okay, so 2 of the brothers are watching their other brother out there.
Yes.
Interesting. See, I thought about that because, of course, my husband is a survivalist, and he could do anything in the woods. I'd be like, yeah, I'm not punching the button. Go suck it up. Figure it out.
So they have to stay unless the family member punches the button to tap them out. And so it's really interesting because they all have cameras on them. So sometimes they'll be like, push the button, I'm done. And the family will be like, no.
That might be me. No, you're not. Suck it up, Buttercup.
So yeah, it's a fun show. And it's a good one that you could watch with the family. It's a good one. So.
Okay. All right. Well, my favorite thing that I have been consuming way too much of right now is Easter candy season.
I love Easter candy.
I don't think there's candy that I like better than Easter candy. And my top 3 favorites, and I realize that this is going to be controversial on one of them. I love the Reese's eggs. A fresh Reese's egg, because the peanut butter to chocolate ratio, there's way more peanut butter than there is chocolate in a Reese's egg. Love that. Of course, Cadbury mini eggs. I like to suck on them till the shell comes off.
So good.
I've already eaten 2 packages of Peeps.
Oh, the Peeps. The Peeps are controversial. Peeps are very controversial.
Peeps are controversial, and I love Peeps, and I'm not going to be ashamed of it. I'm a Peep girl.
Don't hide it.
I like them fresh. I like them stale. It doesn't really matter. I like marshmallow. Oh, wait a minute. I take it back. I've eaten 3 packages of Peeps, 2 normal packages of Peeps. And then do you remember last year I had the s'mores Peeps
with
the chocolate on the bottom?
Those are good.
I had 1 package of those.
Those are delicious. Okay.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up for us today. Twim Nation, thank you very much for joining us. Please, if you'd like to leave comments or you have anything you want to say about the show, reach out at contact@thisweekinmormons.com, and we will, or at least Kurt, will get your mail, and he generally forwards it on to us, and we appreciate that. You, of course, can find us on Facebook. We probably need to update our Twin Sisters Instagram.
I need to get on and update the Instagram.
Yeah, we haven't done that for a while.
Some of our favorite things.
We've been bad. So, but as always, thank you very much for listening, and we appreciate you.
Thank you.